everyone. I've got a question for you. What's black and white and seen all over? It's ARG Presents Black and White Edition.
Yeah, there we go.
Ooh, get this out of here. I am Amigo Aaron, joined by a man who's a colorless, drab fellow in his own right. I give you Brent.
I prefer to say I'm neutral.
Yeah, well, there you go. So if you joined us last week, we spun the wheel and we made the all-important deal. A deal I didn't see coming, that's for sure. And this week, we're going to be playing games that are black and white.
That's right.
What's this all about?
The monochrome era. Hey, before games were color, they were black and white. So I think we should take a little look back at the history of black and white games.
To be fair, black and white are colors.
That's correct.
So there you go. So, with that in mind...
Actually, one is the absence of color, and one is all color.
Okay, Professor Genius. So, with that in mind, we thought we would take a tiptoe through some early monochrome or black and white games and just discuss a few of our favorites and talk about some of the early stuff. So, Brent, I compiled a small list of old monochrome games, and we're going to count monochrome in this list, which is black
certainly,
and white.
Yes.
And Vectrix and Vector stuff.
Yes.
So, just for fun, what is your earliest recollection? Was the first game you ever saw? I'm guessing it was not black and white, given your age.
Correct. But I remember playing some of the Pong systems, the plug into your television, 13 variations of Pong.
Yeah.
And those were all monochrome at the time.
You know, we never had one of those. But
nope.
Our uncle had one.
That's correct.
And we used to play it. Now, the very first game I ever saw, I believe, I've talked about this before, it was either Boot Hill or Space Invaders. I think it was Boot Hill. But as I recall, it was in black and white. But I think there are some versions out there that have an overlay on them as well.
Viva La Raza.
That's right. Well, I don't know what that came out of nowhere. So, but another one of the games I saw early on was Space Invaders, which absolutely, in fact, we've owned Space Invaders.
Yes.
The mother of all games, and this thing utilized overlays in certain versions as well. So, what are you talking about? We've covered a few overlays. They were pretty effective on these monochrome games.
They were doing the best they could with the technology they had, and it was very innovative. It gave the games depth in a way that, really even color doesn't give, because a lot of those overlay games actually had layers upon layers that made the game feel deep. If you remember X's and O's football, where you had the stadium overlay,
which we had.
That was really more of a bezel, but it got smaller and smaller.
But that was all done with the cardboard, plastic over top of the screen.
But and then the game itself was black and white. It gave the illusion of depth of looking down to the stadium because they had to do something to spice up the black and white screen.
Let's talk about your Asteroids. I believe it's Asteroids Deluxe that has that really swank asteroidy black background it's overlaid with the monochrome. That was a cool kind of mirror gimmick from back in the day. We've talked about that before.
Yes, that was some awesome stuff.
That would give you a little bit of a feeling of color and depth in your game.
And when you came home to the home computer, almost all the first computers were monochrome. And of course, anywhere you've got a computer, they're going to be games.
Do you recall the first computer you ever used?
Probably the TRS-80.
So you weren't around. Like when I was a young lad, there was one computer at our school, and it was a TRS-80 Model 2, I believe, that we had one computer in the whole middle school. And of course, it was a monochrome computer. But you're right, that's all you had. There were no computers that had color. First computer that I saw that had any color at all would have been one of the Atari 8-bit machines. And then shortly thereafter would have been an Apple II that I saw that had it was one of the Apples. It's so far back I can't remember.
And then really from there you move on to black and white consoles. The Vectrix comes to mind as being the most dominant one. Yeah. That went back to the arcade technology of using overlays to get the color.
Right.
Of course,
to great effect.
Oh yes. Yeah. And then you've got all the Pong consoles that were black and white, different variations of soccer and the Arkanoid breakout type stuff.
Shooting stuff. There was some that had a shooting element.
Yeah, and then from there, you go into portables that did black and white before they did color. Even with the technology being there.
Yeah, for example, another one, the TRS-80, the portable TRS-80 had sort of a colorless. It was almost like an LED screen almost. It was a computer.
You got the Game Boy, of course, the most famous of them all. Yes. Plus, the Game.com was black and white in the beginning, and then finally, your very early versions before smartphones of cell phone games were black and white. Right. So it's if you go back and look at the history, it's a continuous reset of let's push the technology to something new. Okay, we're going to start in black and white because that's what's easiest. Move up from there, then fall back, and just to repeat the cycle again.
Now, I got a little list here of some old, incredibly old black and white games I thought we talked about just real quick. And I'm just going to name a couple of the big hitters there, and you tell me if you played them and what you thought. So, and this was a big game when I was because we've talked about Gunfight on here. I'm going to skip that. Seawolf. Have you ever played that?
I have played Seawolf.
It's a good game.
Yes.
A Death Race, a very infamous game.
Well, it's a Seawolf, for those who haven't played it, is a sub-based game.
That's right.
When Death Race, very controversial at the time because it was. I mean, this is the first game that you killed your opponent and a little gravestone would pop up and it'd say R.I.P.
Sort of like an actual human.
Yes, and you ran over people.
Lunar Lander, one of my favorites.
One of the best.
Really good. They made an excellent version, in a public domain version or a homebrew version on the Vectrex. It's very good as well.
Lunar Lander. The claim to fame on that is you're trying to land on the moon on little platforms, and you're just using a thruster. Yeah. So you just have to ease yourself down on the planet. Very fun. That's an excellent. I almost chose, by the way.
That's a game that if you haven't played it, there is no game quite like it.
It's worth going back and taking a look at.
Red Baron was an excellent wireframe like flight. I don't know if you played
Red.
that
one. Absolutely. One of my favorite flight games. Actually,
yeah, really good.
Back in the day, played it at Showbiz, and it had the whole set down cockpit. And man, I would just pump quarters in that thing endlessly.
That was fun. Have you played Sprint 2, which is fun, and they also had a 4-player, I think even had an 8 version that was the same thing. It was the overhead top-down racing games that were popular back in the day.
Yeah, this was the modern equivalent would be, I guess, Off-Road. The
Iron Man Stewart's Off-Road.
Yes.
Except, of course, those are far more elaborate.
Oh, of course. But this was still, it's a top-down view of you racing around tracks. It feels more like remote-controlled cars than anything else because of your perspective.
The fact is they even had an 8-player version. Astounding. Think about it, that's a lot of steering wheels. Let's talk about Amiga Race. This is a game I was very fond of back in the day. Again, a game where you race around this in a spaceship around this sort of like square or rectangular area, just blowing stuff away.
Absolutely. It incorporated more of a space theme. And guns and weapons, and going around the track was only half the battle because of all the obstacles.
Now, we covered a game on here that falls in this category. The old Stunt Cycle.
Stunt Cycle, yeah. The look at Evel Knievel jumping over buses. Certainly another monochrome game that we did cover.
I liked that one quite a bit. Just a couple more here. Fire Truck, which I don't know if you ever played that one. It's a pretty interesting one.
I have not played Fire Truck. Yeah. Not in the arcade. I have dabbled with it on the emulation. However, it does not emulate well.
Yeah.
It does not emulate well.
Now, are there any console monochrome games that were amongst your favorites you think of off the top of your head?
Well, on the Game Boy, there were plenty. The monochrome version of Tetris for the Game Boy is one of the best games of all time.
Yeah, it's funny that we did this. Neither one of us actually chose anything from the Game Boy, but the Game Boy effectively, you could have chosen hundreds
anything from its library, correct?
Yeah. And it's the quintessential monochrome portable or monochrome home
Absolutely.
system.
It shows you how far monochrome went into the future, at the time of its release. I mean, and I have a feeling the next thing that comes out maybe past some kind of virtual reality, which really, I guess they already did VR in monochrome because of the Virtual Boy.
Virtual Boy, which is another one. And the problem, and actually, we did the Virtual Boy way back. It's been a while back. It's one of the earliest episodes me together.
Nope, I wasn't part of it.
Oh, I thought you were part of it. Was that Bode?
Yes.
Well, that is way back then. And I've given the Virtual Boy a couple more looks, and that game was a missed opportunity. I think the games for it looked nice. They really did.
The monochrome, I don't feel the monochrome is what hurt the Virtual Boy the most. I think the clunkiness
Yeah.
of how you were expected to use it
It's
was
goofy.
the most devastating.
The fact that you have to have your head in this thing and have that on a stand.
Yeah, they should have just went with a complete head strap.
Something tells me if they were going to remake the Virtual Boy today, you could probably pull it off quite nicely and make a pretty light unit that would fit, that you could wear around without much trouble.
I think it's possible.
Yeah, so I think that part of the problem was just that they were very we're going for something that was very advanced
and innovative.
So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and leap directly into the line of fire here. Now, I'll go first this week, Brent, if I may.
Sounds good.
Because when Brent said we were doing black and white games, I instantly knew exactly. I told him right there. I was like, I know what I'm doing.
And I hated it.
I hated it, but I'm thinking outside the box here. And also, when am I going to be down this road again? How is this going to come up? So the game I chose to cover this week is a pinball game, and it's Centaur. Centaur, a game from Bally Manufacturing. It was a game that came out in 1981. So this is right at the dawn of the solid state era. Now, why would I pick a pinball game, you may ask? Well,
that's exactly what I asked.
Centaur, there's only 2 pinball games I've ever seen that had the look of Centaur, and that was Centaur and Centaur 2.
Yeah, which are the same game.
Centaur 2 is effectively the exact same game as Centaur 1, except for the back glass is different, and they consolidated some of the internal parts, and so it's the actual mechanisms are a little bit different, but it's the same game.
Yeah, so, it is certainly the same game. They changed the cabinet, the shape of the cabinet a bit to make it a little more maintenance friendly.
Yeah, they didn't try to trick anybody, and often I found that Centaurs and Centaur 2s are worth just about the same amount of money.
Yeah, which is understandable because it is effectively the same game.
So again, this game was manufactured in October of 1981, and they produced 3,700 units.
That's a pretty small run.
I mean, it's a huge run, but it's a middle of the road.
That's a middle of the road run for the 80s.
This machine had the usual things you would expect to see: the pop bumpers and bank targets and that sort of things. But one of the things it had that was really unique at the time was a 5-ball multi-ball.
Yes.
Now, Centaur. Why did I pick that for black and white game? The entirety of the reason is all of the art on this game is all in black and white.
Yes.
The only light there are a few touches of red on occasion. Most
of the
color you'll see is from lighting.
Yes.
It's an incredibly unusual and odd looking beast, isn't it?
Yes.
The premise of this game, of course, it's Centaur. I mean, normally Centaur is the body of a horse with the torso of a guy stuck in the front. In this fantasy futuristic version of a Centaur, we've got a man's torso hooked to basically a motorbike.
Yeah.
That'd be rough, you know. That'd be a hard life. But the vibe of this machine is unlike any other machine I've ever seen. Again, you've got all black and white art. And the art is real, freaking amazing looking art.
It is. It's a very beautiful machine.
Well, it's in
its creepiness, it's a very beautiful machine.
The designer of it was a fellow named Jim Patla. Now, Patla actually has designed a bunch of good machines, and this one was. There's really, if you look at what he's designed, it's nothing that he did looks like this game. So, what makes this game special aside from the artwork? It also talks. It says it's one of those
continuously,
games, and it's sort of like it's often compared to a Gorgar, Brent, in that the way it talks it taunts you basically, and it makes fun of you for various failures. So making some weird noise here. The difference in this game and say a Gorgar is there's like a reverb mechanism that sound runs through.
Yes.
And so it makes it sound real echoey and bizarre, and it works real well. So the designer, we mentioned his name is Jim Pata. He did a lot of games. So check this out. He did 41 machines. That's incredible.
That's a lot of design.
I picked out some of his highlights. Amongst his games of note, Elvira and the Party Monsters.
Great machine.
The original Kiss pinball machine.
Not great.
I mean, it's super popular. The original Playboy machine, which is
not great.
Well, he's saying not great, and you gotta understand the years these were released, but they're super duper collectible. He did Matahari, which was a really good game, and he also did Time Tunnel, which I always liked.
Time Tunnel was did we own a Time Tunnel?
No, we did not.
We won a Time Tunnel.
Now the art on this was
pretty
done,
good one.
The art on this was done by a fellow named Paul Ferris. Now Paul Ferris is another prolific guy, but listen to these other titles he's done. This will blow your mind because if you look at the art on Centaur, it's nothing like any of these machines. And he did a lot of my favorites, by the way. Twister, he did the art on that. He did the art on GoldenEye, which is another game I really like. He did the art on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Hook, Checkpoint, Batman, Phantom of the Opera, Total Recall, Grand Lizard. That's got awesome art. Andromeda, Xenon, Evel Knievel, Lost World, Playboy, and the big one, he did the art on WWF Royal Rumble.
Wow.
So we've got set behind us. So the same guy that did the art for Royal Rumble did the art for this. That's amazing, isn't it? Don't you think?
You can tell. I mean, just from that list, it really goes all over the map to human realistic, to fantasy, to sci-fi. So the dude is obviously just a good artist.
Yeah, I agree. So this game is held in pretty high regard by players, and one of the reasons why it's held in such regard is the fact that the way it's designed. A lot of games of this era are similar to this, but this one rotates. There are already no ramps. There's no elevations. It's pretty much a flat play field. Again, for me it reminds me somewhat of Gorgar. But what this does is it makes the multi-ball particularly insane. This is also known as a difficult machine to play, and that's why it's often used in tournaments and whatnot.
Yeah, in play, it's all based on sequential targeting. So you have to get your drop targets down in the correct order to be rewarded, and if you hit a drop target out of order, it cancels the reward you were going to get, so you have to knock everything down to reset it to try again. Also, I don't know if you plan on mentioning this, but I'm going to mention it.
Go ahead.
The multi-ball in this, most games at the time were capture multi-balls. You would shoot a ball into a scoop, and the ball would sit there until you completed some other reward, and then the machine would release the ball. That's not how it works in Centaur. When you get a multi-ball, it actually shoots the ball from the shooter lane, but it's from underneath. So you're just playing along, and a ball will come out of the middle of the shooter lane because there's a ramp that goes underneath, pop out, and enter the play field.
I love that, by the way.
When you're not expecting it, holy moly.
I would not be surprised if this is the first one to do it. I don't have a list here, but I like it's a smooth addition of a ball, and it catches you, too.
It does.
And you're right. When a lot of games like, and we've actually owned some that were like this, like Firepower 2, for example. We'll grab a ball, hold it, and then you'll get a simple 2 or maybe even 3 ball multi-ball, or like I think it's a space shuttle that does that, or no, it might be a space station, one of the two, where it holds the balls. Yeah, this one just adds balls whenever you get there, and it does get a little crazy. The artwork on this is nice. I've mentioned the Centaur. There's also his, I guess, hot dominatrix girlfriend is featured in the game, which is kind of cool. There's also you can kind of get into her boudoir, and there's stuff to do in there. The fact of the matter is, the game has sound effects and the art in this game. To me, give it a crazy combination of sort of a Mad Maxy feel and plus a fantasy element that I've never seen anything quite like it. In fact, it's sort of Geiger-esque or Giger in the fact that you've got a man who's half motorcycle and half human.
Sure.
But he's got motorcycle and human, or he's got sort of like Centaur parts also in the back end of him. It's a real unusual looking cat.
Yeah.
And he dominates the back glass, and it works well. Again, this era, they were taking a lot of chances. I mean, if you look at Gorgar, it's another sort of abstract monster type of affair. But like I said, for this episode, this thing looks so unique. I had to throw it in. I thought
Yeah, and it is black and white. The art in this is black and white. So
yeah. So again, this thing ran for 3,700. A 3,700 unit run, and so that was good enough for it to get a quote unquote sequel, like we mentioned earlier, which is Centaur 2. It came out in '85. Again, it was basically the same. It was the same.
It was the exact game, yeah,
as the other one. So I had to look on eBay to see what this was going for, and I actually found a couple copies of it. It's going for around $3,500.
Oh, that's pretty reasonable for a good machine.
And Centaur 2 goes about the same. Now I've seen them go as low as 2,000. And I haven't seen any go much higher. I've seen people asking more.
Sure.
Now, this is one of those games that you can actually play at home, sorta. This was released on the Pinball Arcade when they had the rights to do the Bally stuff. They lost those rights, unless you already own it, or you can find the disc, a copy that I don't think it ever was on the disc, but you have to have
I
owned
think it was a download.
You're pretty much boned. Now, I'm assuming at some point in the future. Yeah, the folks
It'll
that
get
make the other
re-released.
pinball machine will release it. Now,
hopefully so, because it's a fun machine to play. Although I will have to say it is very, very challenging.
Yeah.
And it can be very, very frustrating because doing things in sequential order in pinball can always be frustrating.
Now, I did look up a couple ratings on this. Of course, when you're talking pinball, you've got to go to the Internet Pinball Database, and they have this ranked at a solid 8 out of 10, which is. Internet Pinball Database, their rating system is you basically people send in reviews, and I think we've mentioned this in the past, but sometimes people will try to kill reviews by giving them 1 star, and sometimes people will jack reviews up because they own the machine or something,
and they're wanting to sell it.
And I mean, this is what I've heard. I don't think anyone can prove this, but it wouldn't surprise me because you get a lot of real extreme ratings from people that don't leave a comment just to try to alter the way it looks. But I don't think I would go quite so high. It's funny, my personal experience with this game, and I played it in the arcade a couple times when it was out. I found it quite disturbing, if you want the truth, as a kid. And I didn't really want to play it that much, but I did find it again in Pinball Arcade, and I played it a lot more. It's a difficult machine. Those outlanes are brutal. It drains a lot.
Although, you can bump in the actual machine, not in the virtual machines as well. The outlanes are wider, but there's a plastic on it on either side that if you hit the plastic, you can bump the machine, and it will go through a gate back into the outlane, back into play. So that's why it's a little bit wider. You have to really work the machine. It's a hard machine.
This is another one of those wacky machines. And this is, you don't see that much, but every once in a while I'd see it in the arcade. Every 15 minutes, a ball would just shoot into the playfield, bing bong around and drain.
Yeah, for an attract mode, yeah.
It's always strange. But overall, I like the game. I don't think I'd give it a quite that high. I also looked on the other pinball rating site, which is called Pinside. I like Pinside. They do pretty good work over there. They gave it a 7.94, so pretty similar. I don't think I'd go that high. I'd probably give this about a 7.
I'd give it about a 6.
And the art is a large chunk of the reason why, just because the art is so incredible. It's definitely worth going out of your way to look at, if not play, and it is what it is. I'm guessing you feel about the same.
I do. While doing research for this game, however, I found something that was very interesting.
Yeah.
Someone had taken a Twilight Zone, removed all the art. Well, I'm guessing it had a separate playfield, and black and whited it.
I already hate this.
No,
they black and whited it to be like the show.
Yeah,
that's not the worst idea.
It looks incredibly awesome. I mean, they changed all the components on the game, like the gumball machine and stuff, and made it all black and white. It looks amazing.
Pretty neat. So, with that wacky choice out of the way, Brent, what do you bring to the table this week?
I went back and for a computer I'd never hardly use, and grabbed a glider for the old Mac Classics and up the line. And while I specifically was focused on Glider 3.14, I want to kind of go over the history of Glider because it's kind of interesting. Glider was made by Jonathan Calhoun. This was back in his college days. Funny thing is, in the beginning, this was first programmed for a Commodore VIC.
Really?
And he was in Alaska, and he was just toying around with programming, and he was up there with his father, and he had the concept of paper floating on vents, which is a big part of what happens in Glider, and he tinkered with it on the Vic, and just got to a point where he couldn't go any farther, and then was leaving Alaska to go to college. Many, many years later, he had a Mac Classic, and decided to revisit the project that came up with Glider. Glider is a huge cult following game for the Mac community. This is one of their big go-to titles to go and show how fun gaming on the Mac could be. And it's kind of strange because we're talking about Glider 3.14, which makes you wonder what happened to Glider 1 and Glider 2. Uh-huh. Glider 1 is virtually lost to obscurity. It's the exact same game as Glider 3, but without sound and without... it had some bugs with it.
Now, were these released?
These were all released. Well, shareware releases.
Okay.
But we'll get into that. So, when he first released Glider, the first Glider, it had a lot of bugs, it didn't have sound, and he almost immediately pulled it. And instead of calling this like Glider 1 point whatever, he just called it Glider 2. So Glider 2 is still findable on the web. And it's the exact same game with just sound and bug fixes. And it got pulled. So he said, well, okay, that wasn't good enough. Now I'm putting out Glider 3. Glider 3 hit the market. And between Glider 3, Glider 3.1, Glider 3.2, Glider 3.1 and 3.14, the game just was refined. And he finally realized that he should stop going up incrementally with his game. That's the exact same game because it's confusing.
Yeah,
but
I think I played 2.
This was during his college days, so he did figure it out. When he released these games, he released them as shareware. And from what everyone knows, he started trying to get money for it on Glider 3. And his about screen says, look, I know you don't want to send any money. I mean, really, how often are you going to play this game? But if you could just send $8, that'd be awesome. Just let me know that you're enjoying the game. Or if you just want to write me and we'll talk, that's awesome. Because, the dude, he
was lonely.
Yeah, well, he wasn't lonely. He had a girlfriend at the time. But he was saying...
you researched that?
Yeah, well, he did.
That's incredible.
But he was just saying, I would like to get recognition for the work I did. And he didn't quite understand, because, of course, the internet and stuff, he didn't quite understand how big Glider was getting in the community. So he started getting a lot of letters. And he said that not a lot of checks. He said he'd get about 1 check a week, and that he would take that money and go and get pizza and soda. And he could almost always guarantee that at least 1 check a week would come, and he would cash it and go out and get pizza with it. So
that's great.
Glider 3.1 releases, and he's like, he's saying again, if you can send $8, that's great. And he stopped asking for letters because he was getting a ton of letters just talking about the game, wanting to know stuff, but no check with it. So he cut that part out of his about and was just asking for $8. And you could also buy the source code for $15.
Right.
Glider 3.14, which was the last of the Glider Black and White series, he finally just says, you know what? Stop sending me crap. The game is free. Everyone go out there and enjoy it. Which was pretty cool of him. It was also, he used 3.14 to promote Glider 4, which was going to come out in color and black and white, and was an actual extension of the series, which was going to be properly released with a publisher.
Like a commercial release.
That's correct.
I see.
And the publisher they got for this was Cassidy and Green.
Oh yeah, they're great. It's like a law firm.
So Cassidy and Green released Glider 4, and they actually stayed in business for like 15 years. Not solely on this release, but releasing other little titles like it. But when they went bankrupt, part of the agreement with Glider was that John would regain the rights to it. So John, in the early 2000s, got the rights back for Glider, and he said, you know what, we're just going to make this free for everybody. And he put the Glider Pro and Glider 4 and all the Glider games up on his website and said, just come, get them, enjoy them. I hope you have a great time with it, which is very, very cool, because he could have certainly tried to make a buck off the retro nostalgia, but he didn't. He just wanted people to enjoy the game. And it's a good thing, too, because I really enjoyed this game. The point of Glider is you are a paper airplane trying to escape your house, or a house, I suppose. And you do this by flying through the house, catching updrafts from vents in the floor that will boost your plane upwards. And then you have to go room by room, 15 rooms to get to a window that's guarded by a cat. And if you can dodge the cat and get out the window, you fly free.
I never got anywhere near the cat.
I made it. I beat this.
Really?
Yeah, it's only 15 stages.
Smokes. Oh, yeah.
The game is difficult until you... but when you see the pattern of a game, of each room, you eventually get to the point where you know what to do. And once you complete a room and you know how to complete it, it's just a matter of doing it, which isn't so bad. If you play on any version besides 3.14, there are speed up and slow down bugs. So if you're having difficulty with the game, be sure you're playing 3.14, and that will probably help you out a lot. But like I said, the game is just 2 buttons. It's drift back and drift forward, and you control your little paper airplane, and you fly through a house, avoiding obstacles like candles, tables. You can get different power-ups like clocks to give you more time. In this game, there is no ability to shoot. And there are other paper airplanes, like paper helicopters, that are used as obstacles to try to hit you out of the air. In later games, you could actually get rubber band upgrades to kind of shoot down planes.
I never saw any. I didn't see anything like that. All I did was fly around the room. So I must have been playing an older version. I think I played 2. I'm pretty sure it's the one I played.
Yeah, and that's definitely not the one to play. But this is fun, and it's good, simple fun. The art in it, even though it's black and white and it's very basic, it has a certain amount of appeal to it. Just seeing different rooms of a house, and they are, as you'd expect, like the kitchen's got cabinets, and the entryway has a table setting around and everything. It's all basic, and it's not a great use of black and white, but it's endearing in its simplicity.
I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Okay.
I actually thought the art was really good.
No. I didn't say that the art wasn't good. I was just saying it was simplistic.
What I liked about this game, first of all, the concept is great.
Yes.
It's a great concept that I would never have thought of in a million years. Brilliant. Who wants to be a glider? They can't do anything, right? So you're manipulating the environment to keep this glider going, basically.
Right.
Very clever, y'all.
Yes.
And then there's something about, and listen, this is not a newsflash. I'm no big fan of Apple. But from a nostalgia perspective, going back and playing the old black and white Mac, all right, the monitor on that thing is crisp.
Yeah,
it's
it is.
Beauty.
It's very sharp.
And when it renders these graphics, it's almost in its own Vectrex-like way. The image you receive on these monitors is a very crisp, detailed picture. It just, when we did our games before on here on the classic, it's such a good-looking, sharp image that the lack of color is not that big a deal.
I agree.
And so
I agree.
I think he was right. The rooms are rendered nicely. They pop off, and the airplane looks cool.
Yeah.
The effects on it, the movement is nice and smooth. I thought it looked just outstanding, and it's a clever game. Now I stink at this game, but luckily this is another one of these games we just covered Bruce Lee on the Spectrum on our sister show, and this game is similar in that I liked it much more on the actual machine than I did when I played through an emulator.
Sure.
Because
I think that's fair.
You cannot simulate that monitor effect to me, it doesn't look the same.
Well, I mean, it's a CRT monitor versus what almost certainly we all have flat panels nowadays.
Well, it's just there's a vibrance or a shimmer. If you go into like a real high res Amiga mode as well, you get that kind of weird shimmer. It's not good on the Amiga, but it works. Whatever they've got going on the Mac, it works, and it adds to the game to me. Maybe it's just the novelty of playing on that kind of. I mean, that's an unusual monitor. When I was growing up, we didn't have any sort of grayscale monitor like that. So I've never experienced it before, and I enjoy it every time I do. And this game, I think, shows it off as well as any does. And it's a beautiful thing. And the puzzle elements of this stuff are very clever.
Yes, it is at its heart a puzzle game.
And it makes sense. I never feel like I got screwed over. I mean, it feels like it's not easy. It's not an easy game. I didn't think it was.
No,
Clearly,
it's
you
not.
know a lot better than me.
Well, a lot of it you have to kind of go on faith, because a lot of the pressing forward, you just barely make it, and you hit that vent and you start floating back up.
It's gratifying whenever you get to a point where your thing goes back in the air, or gets under something or over something.
Now, the one downfall of this game that they actually fixed in later versions is you're always moving either forwards or back. When you hit it, whatever key you last hit, that's the direction you go. So to stay above one event, to go forward, you have to left and right it back and forth to kind of shimmy up. In later versions, they took that out, and if you weren't pressing a key, you just would sink. You wouldn't be moving forwards or backwards. Some other releases of this, to explain how popular this was, this got released on all the Macs up to, I believe, OS 10. It also got a Windows release that still works, and one of the Nintendo retro carts that for the NES, they contacted John and said, "Hey, we would like to port your game to the NES." This was way after the NES. This is here, and he excuse me. He gave his blessing, and
joking you from far.
Thank you. He gave his blessing, and that's what they did. They made a Nintendo part of it.
Have you played any of these other versions? I can't picture this game in color, for example.
Yeah, I looked at Pro, I looked at Glider 4. Glider Pro was the one after it. And it does lose something when you go to color, in my opinion, because the art is just as basic, but it loses its kind of charm, because now it just looks like crappy art.
That's what I was wondering. Because I don't know if I'd want to play this game if they jacked up the art for the modern machine. Because you could effectively have you could have a picture perfect room.
No.
Like a lot of, now, which that might be kind of neat. Actually, now I think about it, to have a photorealistic room and a photorealistic glider, and use legitimate actual stuff to keep it aloft. That could kind of concept. I mean, I don't think anything between the two would be good.
Right.
You've got this version with the black and white and on the old Mac, and then you could have a photorealistic version, but I don't think I'd want to see the evolving of that,
And I mean, the game itself is very fun. It adds a few elements, which really helps the puzzle elements of it. It adds a battery where you can kind of dash forward, which you need to solve some of the puzzles. But I gave the graphics in this a pass on the black and white version because it was charm, and it was it was very stylized. The color version I did not enjoy as much because now it just looks cheap, which I know is not what they were going for. They were trying to keep that charm, but it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those games that you're sort of like frozen in time. You don't want to mess with it. There are certain games like that. Like, I feel the same way of like something like a Jumpman or something.
Yeah.
It's the simplicity is part of it. You don't need to go in there and jack up the graphics. And we've seen this. This seems to be the thing to happen in the 90s, the early 2000s especially. Take one of these classic games and how you juice them back up, or the new version, Or they've got it all jacked up.
And
so
the 3D,
inevitably,
yeah.
it never works, does it?
Well, and something else I want to mention about this game, you actually have a choice between 2 different airplanes. You can be the glider, which is, as you would imagine, it's a wider wing plane, paper airplane. You can also be a dart, which is what I always called a jet airplane, which is the other basic form of paper airplane. But I don't like playing with the dart, and in fact, no one likes playing with the dart. It's obviously, it's not even part of the title, but you move insanely fast, and you can actually break a lot of the puzzles with it. It's supposed to be in there for an easier way to finish the game, but for me, it just kills it. Because it wasn't optimized to be played with the dart. It was optimized to be played with the glider.
I always play with the glider.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. So I'm guessing since the game had such longevity and was so popular, I'm guessing it got good reviews.
It did, yes. Everywhere it got high praise. And as a shareware to a freeware game, you can't do much better, especially on the Mac.
Now, so when they released this commercially, so did they release this in like can you go out and buy a boxed version?
Not Glider 3. Glider 4 was released through a publisher and had a box.
I see.
Sat on a shelf.
So is that one particularly? Is there a lot of value in that one?
There's no, because I mean it's still released out there today,
right?
In different compilations, and you can just go and download it. And like I said, he's released it, and you can just go to his website right now and just download it.
I see. Great. So, I guess my last question on it is, because again, and this is sort of a broader question. Which version is the most popular one? I mean, did people keep playing the newer versions, or the classic versions?
Well, something about the newer versions that really boosted it to the next level is they gave you the ability to make your own rooms. Level editor.
You're kidding me.
And that became, of course, very popular. And there was quite a scene, especially at this time when the internet was more of a thing and you could pass levels around. That became quite a thing. So a lot of communities built levels for each other and passed them around, and it was quite a scene for a while.
That's crazy. That's remarkable. Well, I think we're going to close the book on black and white games. Pretty interesting. I think of the two, I like Glider a lot. And so when you picked that one, I was actually looking forward to going back to it.
Fun game. It is. Take a look, guys. It's free. Go get it.
Bo introduced this to me. I don't know if that's where you saw it at a party, and it stuck with me. It's an excellent little item. Another excellent little item is a little thing we call the wheel. Get the music.
All right.
So, Brent, tell the people what you've added this week.
We have added a console back to the wheel, the Nintendo 64.
The Nintendo 64. Who'd have thunk it?
Quite a bit of my
Look, our little faces are turned on there, Brenny.
Oh.
We're crooked.
Here we go. Well, duh.
Spin the wheel. What are you hoping for? I want laser.
Saturn.
I want laser disc.
It's Saturn time, baby. Oh. Let's pull it back.
Let's see what we got here.
Oh, we got the TurboGrafx CD.
Oh my gosh! Now the TurboGrafx CD, which I don't own, I'm afraid. I wish, but there's so much stuff out for it that is JRPG related. But there's also a lot of non-JRPG stuff that I found interesting. It'll be fun to look at. That's one I have access to pretty much the entire library, but I've not really messed with it that much. Have you ever messed with it?
I have actually never emulated the TurboGrafx CD.
Holy smokes! Well, there you go. This will be your
new experience.
Hey, good thing I jacked your Xbox for you, because I've got pretty much all the stuff on there. Hey, before we go, I wanted to touch base with everyone on the Amigo Aaron Arcade helpline. I requested some folks send me some ideas for arcade themes last week. I've been doing a lot of work in here, and we actually got some pretty good quality requests. I just wanted to, I'm not going to discuss the actual theme yet, but I do want to acknowledge a couple people that sent us some real nice ideas. I'd like to thank Roland Burke, who sent us a very interesting idea. Pack Billy, I always like it. And another good one. And then Andy Craig, perennial. Yeah, we see really we see guys around. They all send us real nice ideas for themes. If you have an idea for a nice theme for our arcade or some decorative touches, you can send your ideas over to ARG Presents at mail.com. That's ARG Presents at mail.com. You can also use that email address to say how horrible we are, to make fun of Brent, to give us ideas for wheel pieces.
Yeah.
If you've got I mean, we're really, listen, we're taking the restraints off, aren't we? We're just doing it, man.
If you just want to come up with a, I mean, we did colors this week.
Yeah, I mean,
anything is open.
Yeah, I kind of like some of the more abstract things. I mean, we don't always have to do a console. In fact, I'm getting to the point now we don't have to always do a video game. I do board games. I do role play. I don't care, man. Would you like to see that stuff? If you think that might be interesting to put on the wheel, just for occasional change of pace, drop us a line. I'm always interested to see what people think about this, or leave a comment on under the YouTube video, whatever you want to do. I think, do we have any other news to discuss? I think that pretty much puts it to bed.
That's it.
So next week we'll be playing games on the TurboGrafx CD, and until then.
Wait a minute.
Oh wait, we're not done? I knew he had to get his gimmick out.
Until then.
See you next week. Bye-bye.